If you don't want to spend big money on expensive smart scales, my friends, I have an alternative for you today. And that is this guy. This is the Smart Chef scale by Reflex. This, in my opinion, is the final form GDEALER. It takes everything about the GDEALER and it just makes it insane. So what was really awesome about the GDEALER was the fact that it was cheap, light, small, and really easy to use. You just turn it on. It didn't have a timer, but it was just a good scale. This here is that final form version of it. First of all, what do we have here on the side? We have a micro USB, which means that there is an internal battery inside that you can charge. Next, what's cool? If you look at the top of this scale, we have a chef logo. You know, maybe not the best for everyone, but there's a chef logo here. But the other cool stuff is the internals have been upgraded. So this specific model can only do 500 grams, but you can get one that can do 3,000 grams. But the display is now a lot nicer. The display now has a blue backlighting instead of the no backlight of the original GDEALER. Of course, you can change all the different settings, you can change all your different units and everything. But what's really cool are the smart features when you consider a scale of this cost. So I have my phone here, we're gonna go in, and I'm gonna show you some of just, this is hilarious. There is a Smart Chef app that is basically an advertisement for their scale. There are more apps in this app store for this scale than there are apps that exist for every single other scale. There's so many different scales, and I love that they just tell you, buy Smart Chef scale at the top, because you need one of these to use one of these. But we got really cool things like education, baking ratio, smart cafe. If you click into any of these, what it will allow you to do is this will allow you to install the app. It brings you to another page and you can install the app. A lot of the apps visually, at least for coffee, look the same, but I'll install the app right now. This one here is the Pour Over Scale app. And there are two apps for this. One is that Pour Over Scale app, which I just installed for you. And the second app is all the way down here, which is the Espresso Scale app, which it's the Espresso Scale app. I've actually really enjoyed using it. Basically, you turn the scale off, you turn it on, and we see up there, Smart Scale connected. The connection speed is actually really fast. It kind of just works when you turn the scale off and you open the scale up. I'm gonna show you this Espresso Scale app. The Pour Over app is very similar to this, but as we see here, we have a display of everything. When I actually increase weight and I touch the scale here, the weight on the app increases. I can then kind of build an actual recipe. The goal of this is to be able to build, save recipes, reference things. It's pretty straightforward. It's like many other apps, but it's cool because this is only 25 bucks. So let me kind of go into what they want you to do, which is build a recipe, save it, try to track things and do all of that. But what I think is really cool is actually when you get into using it, when it works. And that's kind of the thing. Software is not the most fun thing in the world of coffee scales, even from the big guys. So when I hit start brewing there, I set the timer over here for, you can set a timer value to anything. I set it to 60 seconds for a specific reason. Basically, there's a really interesting thing here. I hit start brewing, you see here, we see a screen that is kind of similar to a lot of other apps, where we're able to actually see a flow rate weight indicator. So the goal of this is that, say if you're doing an espresso or you're doing a pour over, you're able to see the flow rate every single second. This is super useful when you're actually brewing. But let me kind of show you this. There is a weird bug with this right now, by the way, where it does actually let you start the timer when it detects weight. However, for some reason, it doesn't actually track the flow rate when you do that. I've set this timer to a fairly high value so I can just show you guys. I start the timer now, and the time is counting up, and across this amount of time that you've set, it will track the actual flow rate. It'll track the changes, and it will graph that, which is kind of awesome, to be honest. There is an interesting discrepancy here where I've tared it on the app, but on the actual scale, the value hasn't changed. So it's still reading 258 grams. In the app, it is not reading as 0. So I just want to make sure both of these are zeroed out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit start brewing. Once I hit start brewing, I'm going to hit that play button and I'm going to hit start now. And then as I pour water into here, we see our flow rate actually increase. So if I pour faster, that flow rate will go really, really high per second versus I pour really slowly. And we see that occur, and I'm just going to stop that. I'm going to save. I'm going to save this because you can do that. We see that across the 14 seconds that I was pouring, we see that I poured really, really fast there. That flow rate went crazy, and it even gives us our flow rate per second. What's also really cool about this is I can go to the history. I can go and actually take this, and I can view it in the app. I can view that exact graph that I just saw. Or what I can do is I can actually export this. Exporting it shows up as a CSV, and you can import it into your favorite spreadsheet application, and you can do whatever you want with it. That's so cool when you consider it's a $25 to $35 scale. The app is definitely very quirky. I'm kind of going to go and show you there is, you can definitely tell that they just try to add every single feature into the app, and it's weird. It gets weird. So if we see here in that top left corner, we got a nice menu here, but we have this speaker symbol.
92.21 gram.
That's right, my friends. It will read the weight.
92.25
It'll just keep reading the weight.
92.19 gram.
I don't know if that's a bug. I just turned it off there, but what we can do is we can change the speed at which the voice reads. We can even change the voice. I changed it to this other person.
92.21 gram.
We can do that. If you really wanted to hear the weight of your scale, you can do that, but it's pretty cool. And if I make the voice really, really slow,
92.22 gram.
you can do that as well. But they've added some other features here, which is you can auto turn off your scale. You can prevent the phone from turning off its screen to save the Bluetooth connection. You can do all these cool things. And they work sometimes, but the point is that these features are in a $25 scale, which is hilarious. They also really try to push you into purchasing other products from them. There's an actual little section there that says, hey, we got some sales here. We got some other Smart Chef scales here. They have a new scale that I might have to buy, but the software is like, you know, a 5 or 6 out of 10. It works, but it's quirky. They even have a tutorial here where you can read up on how to brew coffee and why flow rates are important and all of that. And they even have a chat support. You know, if I did actually want to talk to someone from Smart Chef, I can do that. But that's the Espresso app in here. Let's quickly go over the other app. All right, let's go into the Smart Cafe app. So this is kind of the first time setup of an app. You do have to log in for these apps. I just kind of use the Apple ID thing, which I don't really think makes too big of a difference. But anyway, you do have to make an account for some of these apps. I don't know if that's like a big deal, but this is the pour over version of this scale. So now it's just gonna find the smart scale. Usually what I find is that if it doesn't find it, you just turn off the scale and you turn it on. And there we go. Smart scale now connected. Initial UI here, very, very similar to the Espresso app. Same exact settings out here. However, our ratio is much larger, for example, for those pour overs. So for example, say I wanted to make a pour over here. I'm gonna tear all this out, and we actually see our weight readings as usual, and I hit start brewing. It is basically the same thing. However, this one's really trying to make you smart. You can set up different timers for everything. So for example, if I start here, it will basically tell me that I need to do a certain thing as this goes on. So here we go. I'm supposed to pour the 20% water in the first second, and it does give me a percentage reading, so I can actually make sure that I am kind of correct. There we go. It's going. So I'm going to turn on the sound for this one.
0.00 gram.
But let me start brewing just to show you guys this. So there should be a beep or some sort of visual or audible sound to this. I'm supposed to be pouring 20% of the water here. Oh, it doesn't. So I tried to get this to beep. I thought it would audibly do something. Maybe I don't have it set up correctly, but you can visually see if you were just trying to do pours, if you wanted to actually look at the exact weight, you can actually change the text that you put in here. You can change when to do things. You can say agitate or something like that. And it will actually say things, which is pretty cool, to be honest. And you can name your recipe, for example, call it recipe. And then if I go into my actual recipes, I can pick my recipe, which tells
Minus 0.05 gram.
it's loading.
0.00
Oh no,
gram.
get me out of this. Okay, took a while. Oop, the connection to the scale blew up, but now it's back. It's kind of
9.97
just
gram.
very inconsistent at times. There's just small inconsistencies there, as you're seeing. It's $25. What can you expect? But what's nice about this one, I actually kind of am preferring this one here, where it's just a much larger flow rate graph. So for example here, if I go in and pour some water, we see the flow rate increase. It also seems like this one's slightly more granular because the time is much larger. So you're able to see all these different things. And we're trying to match all these different sections here. I think there's just small quirks here where the audio isn't entirely working, like it's not ultra audible. I don't know if there was supposed to be any beeping sounds, considering there is like a buzzer type of deal going on. I don't know. But the point is that you got two apps which actually work when you get them set up. Pour over coffee brewing with time alerts. So I think it is supposed to actually audibly do something. I think it might make your phone ring or something like that. You do get USB cables and everything with it. As you see here, there's a 500 and a 3,000 gram option here. This one does go down to 0.01 grams. Look at the resolution differences between the two. But honestly, the nicest thing about this is the fact that there's actually an app that has data that you can export. You also get the covers, like all of these scales have, at least this style of scale, that all look the same. But it is just kind of awesome that you have the ability to capture data and actually export that, despite it being kind of slow. But at this price point, this is just something really fun. It's like quirky, right? We got the apps that sort of work. We got a ton of apps. And I think this definitely was more, I think, geared towards cooking at first, and then they started to release these coffee apps, and the coffee apps actually work. If I do actually turn the scale off, the app, that Smart Cafe app, will tell me that the scale is disconnected, but this is actually just a hilariously decent scale for the money. I don't really think this is going to replace any of these scales anytime soon. It's definitely not in the same category there. I think it's just a really fun scale if you're really looking for something that just works as a scale, but also has the option to go and capture data and be connected to an app, and you can start maybe tracking and recording some of your brews. But it's pretty good. For reference, if you did want to see some other scales, we may talk about the Weightman and the Neo Way, which is the funner version of the Weightman. You got the app, which is hilarious, and there's weird quirks about it, and that's what do you expect? It's 25 bucks. So that is the Reflex Smart Chef Smart Scale. Very cool stuff. That's all I wanted to show off today. Thank you so much for spending your time to watch the video. If you have any questions, please let me know. But we're gonna talk about grinders, talk about cool stuff later on. All right, see you guys around.